Comment hi. Our group will present to you the Iranian Revolution and French Revolution. Okay, my name is Nuraju Atira bin Nurihan. Following my group member, which is Noro Shafika Izwani, Dayang Asira, Edith Luting, and Noro Dayana Batusha. Without delay any longer, we will present to you the first topic for our presentation, which is Iranian revolutions. Iranian Revolution. There are three main causes of the Iranian Revolution that we found, which is the occurrence of the revolution and its populists, nationalists, and later the Shia Islamic character include a conservative backlash against the westernizing and secularizing efforts of the Western back which is Shah, a liberal backlash to the social injustice, and it's also a rise in expectation created by the 1970 oil revenue windfall and an overly ambitious economic program and anger of a sharp economy contraction in 1977 until the 78 and another shortcoming of the previous regime. The second causes of the Iranian Revolution is the Shah regime became increasingly oppressive, brutal, corrupt, and extravagant. It also suffered from the basic functional failure that brought economy bottlenecks, shortness, and inflation during that time. The Shah was perceived by many as beholden, if not puppet, of a non-Muslim Western power, which is we know as the United States of America, whose structure was effective of the Iran. Next, the third one is revolution replaced by the monarchy of the Muhammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, which is the Islamism and Khomeini. Rather than another leader of the ideology is credited is part to the spread of the Shia version of the Islamic revival that opposed the westernization and saw the Ayatollah Khomeini as the following in the footsteps of the Shia Imam Hussein ibn Ali and the Shah in the role of Hussein for the hated tyrant Yazid I. The other factor that we found is include the underestimation of Khomeini Islamic movement by both, which is the Shah's regime, who considered them as a minor threat compared to the Marxists and the Islamic socialists. And by these secularist opponents by the governments who thought that the Khomeinists could be a sideline. That's all for me. Thank you.
Now we will continue to the three main lessons from Iranian Revolution. The first one is Washington 35 years ago was unable to address the crisis in Iran because the White House, State Department, and other agencies could not agree on an analysis of the reality in Iran and hence could not settle on a sensible policy. The Shah looked westward for guidance. The West looked inward at domestic crisis and commentators. The product was drift toward increased danger. Today, the administration seems more intent on appeasing senator, whence the real threat, rather than educating its public and building unity. Next, we appear to think that because everything had always worked out for the Shah, everything would gain swing his way. In our superior self-confidence, we ignore the revolutionary demand for independence from our sway. We, in our history with Iran, we are a big part of our problem. We decline to shift of any initiative to Europeans who might have been more persuasive, who might have helped moderate the crisis. Today, we resist any move by elites to accelerate the pace of accommodation with Iran, example, easing more sanctions. The last one is, we grasp at other models to fashion a response to Iran. In some quarter of Washington, officials thought the Shah's generation and their troops might crack down or even stage a coup when it became necessary. But the generals were appointed mainly on the intensive of their loyalty upwards, not their patriotism, creativity, or soldierly virtues. Iran was not Pakistan or a South American republic, and its troops were from the same religious background as those fellows on the other side of the barricades. Today, we should at least question whether in their many subgroups Iranians hold different opinions on the nuclear question or are more or less willing to question the nature of the regime. Preconceived dogmatic certainties preclude realistic analysis. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I would like to say about France. Three main causes of the French Revolution. First, the estate system in France was essentially a caste system that ranked and placed people into groups based on wealth and power. Those in the highest tier, the first estate, will be the most powerful. Those in the lowest, the third estate, with poorest at the fewest right and might help their income in taxes. Second, historians debate the influence of enlightenment in the French Revolution. Individuals like Voltaire and Rousseau exposed value of liberty, equality, tolerance, constitutional government, and the separation of church and state. In an age where literacy levels were increasing and printing was cheap, these ideas were discussed and disseminated far more than previous movements had been. Last, French finance were missed by the late 18th century. The taxation system allowed the wealthy to avoid paying virtually any tax at all, and given the wealth almost always equally power, any attempt to push through radical financial reforms was blocked by the parliament. Thank you.
Okay, next I will explain three main lessons from French Revolution. The first one is liberalism. French finances were a mess by the late 18th century. The taxation system allowed the wealthiest to avoid paying virtually any tax at all, and given that wealth almost always equaled power, any attempt to push through radical financial reforms was blocked by the parliament. The second one is revolution. The final key idea of the French Revolution was that France was a nation, not a kingdom. In other words, France was not the personal property of King Louis. It was a union of all 28 million French-speaking people, for all of whom history and individual collective identity had been attached to a tangible social institution such as the family, the clan, or the parish. Now, for the first time, identity was projected onto an imaginary, abstract community of people who had never met in real life, the nation. As we saw in the previous unit, capitalism and the Industrial Revolution helped to create the sustain these imaginary communities as nation states, defined in their opposition to other nation states. Last but not least, revolution. The revolution of 1799 was important because it successfully overthrew a social and political system of government that had dominated Europe for centuries. The ideas of the Enlightenment, the most important being liberty, provided a motivation for the revolt and some guidelines about the sort of new social and political order to be created. But most important was the fact that ordinary people had successfully risen up to force these changes to be made. Popular revolution had been shown to be effective, that is, If it happened once, it could happen again. In this sense, 1799 became a symbol, either inspiration or tweet that dominated the thought of Europeans throughout the 19th century. So next I will pass to my friends.
Next is the similarities that can be found in today's world. The movement of Arab Springs. The key moment in that consolidation was the 2009 presidential election, the last time the Iranian people mobilized against what they perceived with justification to be the institutionalization of revolutionary ideology around Khamenei as the expression of divine will on earth. It was at this moment of crisis that the clergy in Qom fractured between two camps. In one were those who pursued an interpretation of Muslim doctrine that others openly considered blasphemous. The idea that doctrine of the government of the Supreme Jurist Vilayat-e-Faqih should become one of the central pillars of Muslim belief. Next is the French revolutionaries had done something new in military terms. In 1793, the Committee of Public Safety declared what it called the universal mobilization of the French nation. Both want a change from being ruled by an absolute ruler. Both have economic instability from war debt. Both have social inequality. And also, both started because of Enlightenment ideas. Most of the Iranians didn't care who ruled them, a king or a dictator. The same as the French people. Also, both revolutions took places in the big cities. There are some similarities between the leaders in both revolutions. They both ruled the country very poorly. That's all from us. Thank you.